you don't need a tax to pay for a properly calibrated basic income. If you're putting the right amount of new money into the system in the form of a basic income, it optimizes the functioning of the real resource economy. And it helps the economy grow and expand, meaning you can put more money into the system gradually over time. You don't need a tax to pay for new spending. What matters is, are we spending in a way that's most efficient, that's actually helping the economy grow? Because the government could spend money, they could just invent money and bury it in holes in the ground. That wouldn't do anything, right? The trick is, are you putting the money somewhere that helps the economy grow? But today on the pulpit, when politicians go out and propose new programs, we're not asking, is this a good use of resources? What we ask is, how are you going to pay for it? And I think that's a fundamental mistake. I think that it doesn't make sense. And so what that means is, so long as we're fighting about how to pay for it, we're never going to be operating the economy in the most efficient possible way.
Well,
and now, go for it. Go ahead.
I was going to say, how do you pay for it is almost a non-factor, right? Because you just print it.
Yes. And of course, objections to this are people like, what about hyperinflation? What about runaway inflation, right? You're going to devalue your currency. But the thing is that if you look at instances where that has occurred, it's always accompanied by sabotage, by destruction of the real resources, right? So like Zimbabwe, for example, they had hyperinflation. Their currency became valued at like nothing. And so you're paying a trillion Zimbabwe dollars for a gallon of milk or something, right? Something crazy like that. And that happens because if you look what happened before, the government seized the farms and steel producing industries. Output fell by 50%. So there's no goods on the shelves. And then they print money. So they're creating a whole bunch of new money, but their economy hasn't grown, right? The real economy stays the same. Consumers go out to spend their money and there's no goods on the shelves. So of course prices have to rise. Mm-hmm. So what this means is that however we spend, this is true for any kind of government spending, however we spend money into the economy, whether it's through like for military spending, whether it's a basic income, the constraint is how big is the real resources of the economy, not there's not some magical number of money we can't spend. So yeah, you're correct. It doesn't make sense to ask that question. The question is rather, how do we balance the economy? Is this a wise use of people's time and resources, right? And so this idea, and to put this in context, right? People don't realize this, but this argument is just barely under the surface of the political election, because Bernie Sanders, his economics advisors, Stephanie Kelton, and she believes in something called MMT, which is modern monetary theory, which is basically this idea, except without the basic income stuff. They think that this is true, but what they want to do is they want the state to kind of like take over large sections of employment, right? And offer like a federal jobs guarantee and have the state start producing resources. But I think that's a terrible idea. I think that that's not a good way to cultivate the health of the private sector, which is where the currency gets its value from. But this is funny, right? Because if you go listen to Bernie Sanders, they ask him, how are you going to pay for it? He says, we're going to tax the rich. We're going to have a wealth tax. We're going to take all this money from the rich. From my view, you don't need to do that. You're just destroying money from the rich people's accounts. Now, there might be reasons why we would decide this is a necessary thing to do for some reason. Look, maybe we think that it's just not fair for certain amounts of people to have a lot of wealth. Maybe. I don't know if I agree with that. But it's destroying money. Taxes are destroying money, and government spending creates money, right? And so I'd rather say that we should create money by giving it out to consumers, and we should give out as much as we can afford, as much as we think will help keep the private sector growing. If you give too much money, maybe you're going to mess up. There's not enough resources, or there's not enough labor, and the economy can't grow. But so long as you don't print over that amount, then there can't be inflation. But this is just under the surface. It's just there, almost there, because Bernie, presumably, he listens to his economics advisor, right? But he can't really say this in public, because if you say in public right now, taxes don't pay for spending, people will think you're crazy. And I don't know what Andrew Yang believes, right? But presumably, since he's the one advocating handing out money to people, he really can't say this because people would throw a fit. But I don't claim to know what he believes. But I know he's aware of MMT and he's aware of Stephanie Kelton's ideas. But it's something to think about because,
Sure.
if this idea becomes more popular, the world will change because people will realize that we are all in it together, that the economy is a kind of game that we play to help create more resources and to better help each other. And what matters is not who we punish more with tax. What matters is, are we calibrating the correct amount of currency in the economy to help things operate smoothly? So if this becomes more well known, this will change the world. So that's
Right.
the long answer to your question.
Yeah,
but Andrew Yang is a great start. Andrew Yang is a great start, and I'm almost kind of reluctant to go here. You know what I mean? Because he's doing a great job. But this is kind of the fundamental assumption that needs to be reexamined. It's under all of our assumptions about the economy. Taxes pay for spending, right? We need to tax the rich so we can pay for everybody else, even if technically we're sabotaging the economy, in my view, right? So yeah, that's
it almost
that's
seems
it.
so. MMT stands for what again?
Modern monetary theory. And to clarify, I'm not an MMTer. I believe I like this guy Alex Howlett and his view, which is CMT, consumer monetary theory. But MMT is very close, right? But it's more with the left. It's more associated with socialists. But it's kind of like, in my view, they're almost there. They've almost got it figured out.